Alright, if you're guilty of using a life password, that is, a password or two you consistently use across accounts, raise your hand.
I've done it before, not currently, but I've done it.
It's okay. I'm not here to shame you or anything like that, but this is an intervention. It's easy to see why using a life password is a bad idea. If a breach occurs on one account, the person who maliciously gained access now has a really good point to start from when trying to access other accounts you might have. So, obviously, using one password for everything is a bad idea. But at the same time, how are you supposed to memorize a bunch of passwords anyway? I mean, there is the old-fashioned method of keeping them in a notebook and stored somewhere. That can work, but it's not really convenient, nor all that secure. And if you're a Zoomer, then the concept of pen and paper might be foreign to you anyway. So what can you do about it? This is where password managers come in. Password managers are programs that store a database of your passwords and are also capable of generating random entropic passwords. Password managers worth their salt, and the ones we'll be talking about today, keep the database of your passwords encrypted, so that even if a hacker were to gain access to the database, they wouldn't be able to see the information stored inside, as it would all be encrypted. Perhaps the two most common password managers recommended are Lastpass and Bitwarden. Both act as browser extensions capable of autofilling usernames and passwords, as well as generating random passwords to use. Both are cross-platform, so you can load them on any device you have, but LastPass does now require a premium license to be able to use it across different types of devices, so points deducted. But in case you were skeptical of the encryption used, LastPass has had at least one major breach, which had negligible realistic damage because the encryption worked as intended, and the people who breached didn't see any of the passwords stored. Props there. However, I'm not going to recommend either Bitwarden or LastPass, and here's why. It's the simple fact that they store passwords on a remote server. In this case, you really don't actually own your data you're keeping on their servers, and it being stored remotely opens up the possibility of a myriad of other factors going wrong that just simply don't exist on your own individual machine. Which is why, for use in the purposes of this video, I would recommend KeePassXC. KeePass is of course a password manager, but has the advantage of storing your information locally on your machine with AES-256 encryption, meaning the database file is stored is completely useless without the decryption keys. So in this case, you now have complete control and responsibility for your own data being stored. KeePass is also cross-platform, but requires a little bit more work to transfer data across devices. This video won't teach you how to do that, nor will it be a full feature overview of KeePass. Instead, this video will continue to focus on how to keep your data secure. Which leads me to my next point. How do you access the good stuff anyway? That is, how do you gain access to your own passwords? Password managers, including KeePass, run off of what is essentially a master password that is one password to rule them all, one password to find them, one password to bring them all, and, in the darkness, bind them. You are tasked with creating one very secure password to be able to access all your other passwords. No pressure. But now, time to talk strategy. Let's take a look at our super elite hacker toolbox for a moment. Let's say we're targeting another person to attempt and breach, say, their bank account. We have two primary methods of doing so in our toolbox: a brute force attack and a dictionary attack. These are the two most common automated ways of breaching an account. Brute force is the most rudimentary of the two. It guesses variations of common one-word passwords and automatically runs through each combination and permutation until it is successful. Most brute force programs and scripts even account for things like symbols in place of a letter in a word, so no leet speak. However, brute force methods are fairly simple and become somewhat unviable if the password is around 30 characters or more. This leads us into the second common attack, a dictionary attack. A dictionary attack is a bit more complex than brute force and can be socially engineered to be more effective towards a given target. Dictionary attacks use massive databases of words to guess a password. This gives them the capability of guessing more complex passwords than brute force, as well as being able to be tailored more towards their victim. While databases of every English word in existence, or at the very least the 10,000 most common English words, are common and trivial to load into a dictionary attack to use, the hacker can also tweak priorities or add in certain uncommon words that might not be in these databases if they know of you just a little bit. Hence where the social engineering aspect comes in. So you now might be thinking, but wait, won't that take a very long time for a computer to guess every combination of every word? Especially if I chain multiple together, I should be good, right? And you'd be partially correct. However, this function of time is easily solved for by just throwing more computing power at it. It becomes a sort of arms race of hardware at that point. So relying on the odds of time isn't necessarily the best strategy. So what exactly are you to do? How do you craft a master password that's resistant to these automated attacks and is still reasonable to remember as a human being? Continuing our strategic conversation, what I call the 4-word method would reasonably be your best bet. The 4-word method is quite simple. Take a combination of 4 random words, nonsensically arranged, and make that your password. For example, let's do phone, coffee, backyard, barking. That certainly doesn't form a sentence, is fairly easy to remember, and is pushing just a little bit less than 30 characters, making it somewhat resistant to brute force attacks. However, under the duress of a dictionary attack, this password might actually fail quite easily. Not only are these all common words, but a hacker conducting social engineering might be able to skew these words as a priority if they know your morning routine consists of drinking coffee in your backyard while scrolling Twitter on your phone and your neighbor's dog is constantly barking. Know that feel. So wait, did I just disprove the 4-word method? Not quite. The 4 words used just require a little bit more thought put into them. So we know we want to stay away from common words, as well as avoid things that can be easily deduced from an outside observer. This is where using things like slang or made-up words come in. For example, let's come up with another password. Let's say NVIDIA, Delphi, Baka, Shinobi. This phrase makes a lot less sense than the coffee phone phrase used earlier. Some of, if not all the words, will maybe not appear in an English word list, and it even kinda incorporates a different language in just under 30 characters. However, while this is markedly better than our first phrase, it's still not foolproof. If the hacker can deduce you like tech and anime from, say, your Twitter profile, and maybe knows you've been to Greece, then once again, this is vulnerable to social engineering. We've once again arrived at the point of how much hacking really is just a battle of social engineering at this point. So while the last phrase would honestly be fine, depending on how public of a person you are, maybe we can do just a little bit better. So let's go with the third phrase. Let's go with Shinigami, Subcompact, August, Calypso. There is no real rhyme or reason to these words, and while August is common, it doesn't seem to be related to the other 3, and the other 3 will probably not occur in common word lists, so it matches our criteria quite a bit better. So now that we've come up with a good password, or rather, passphrase, we can get into KeePass here. So running the initial setup, it's going to create a database and have us lock it behind the phrase we just came up with. Alright, so now that we're in KeePass, it's time to enter the password that we just came up with. So let's just go with the phrase we just did. So we got Shinigami, Subcompact, August. What's the 4th one?
Calypso.
Okay, Calypso, thank you. Calypso.
So good for remembering those 4 words, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, Shinigami, Subcompact, August, Calypso. Now, done. We can go ahead and just... Then after you've entered your master passphrase and whatnot, you can go ahead and choose a file folder to store the database file in. So let's go ahead and do that. Just set it here to documents really quick. All right, cool. And now we're in. And obviously what I enter in this video isn't something I actually used or will use. So now that we've created and secured our vault, and you can further add to security by also using a key file or some piece of hardware security in order to access your vault, let's just get into the process of making a password. So now, let's say we want to sign up for a YouTube account, because you found this really cool tech YouTube channel called Tech for Thought. I want to subscribe, leave a comment, and get notified whenever they happen to post a video. So we have to make a really secure password for the YouTube account. As previously mentioned, KeePass has an auto-generate feature that will allow you to tweak parameters like what symbols and letters to use, and will generate a random series of characters to use as a password. So let's just go ahead and tweak a few things here and there. Let's just turn everything on, right? And now we have a password that completely makes no sense, as it is just a random array of letters. And down here is a metric that we really want to pay attention to. This is our entropy rating. One advantage of KeePass is that it uses the entropic rating to better judge the strength of the password generated. But what exactly is the entropy rating? You might be used to seeing websites judge how strong your passwords are, telling you it's simply weak or strong. However, those are exceedingly basic algorithms and are more often than not just metrics of how well you meet the website's arbitrary requirements, like a capital letter, symbol, length, etc. So not a very good measure at all. Almost by definition, the entropy rating measures how much chaos is in your password, how random it actually is, and how much sense it makes. The entropy rating used in KeePass is actually from something that was originally developed for Dropbox, but was eventually made open source, so thank you. Anyway, getting back to generating password, we have to have one with sufficient entropy to really be secure. So just as an example, let's take a password constructed from a standard 95 possible characters as you would have on a standard keyboard. Then say we need to construct a password with 12 characters. If we pick at random 12 characters, that will roughly get us to 78, maybe 79 bits of entropy. The one on screen now is 75, which essentially says that there are 2 to the 78.9th power passwords, or written out is roughly 540 sextillion, 360 quintillion, 87 quadrillion, 662 trillion, 636 billion, 962 million, 890,000, 625. This is an enormous amount for a computer to guess, and you begin to hit a sort of hard wall of time. That is to say, it would take a computer a very long time to guess that many combinations. So much time that depending on the hardware, the heat death of the universe might actually occur first. But that isn't to say it isn't in the realm of possibilities. 78 bits of entropy is very good and is reasonable for securing most things. However, to really play the odds of time in your favor, we want to try and shoot for 100 or more bits of entropy. It's very easy to track and measure the bits of entropy with KeePass, as it says it right there. And there's a good chance that a random password of sufficient length generated by KeePass will already be above that 100-bit mark. Do you want to pause it? So for example, if I tweak, let's just go up to a standard sort of 16 characters. Even just as it was randomly generating here, we're pushing well above 100, we're into 120, and we can keep increasing it as we go on. So if you really want to go sicko mode, you can choose for over 500 bits of entropy. Of course, you can go incredibly sicko mode and shoot for something absurd, like over 400 to 500 bits of entropy, which I mean, if your given website allows it, why not? So with all that being said, you should now have a much better knowledge about how to secure your online accounts, as well as feel confident in securing your credentials behind a password manager. And thank you all so much for watching. If you liked what you saw and learned, make sure you leave a like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you know when we upload. We try to shoot for twice a week. If you'd like to support us even more, consider becoming a member, which gives you certain perks, like custom emojis and a chat badge to use when we live stream our podcast, Pass the Salt, every Saturday at 1 p.m. Arizona time. And if you'd like to follow us on Twitter, we are at tech_4_thought, and Instagram at tech_for_thought. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.